Now I've seen it all. I mean, what more could you possibly want? This is a Group 24 100 amp hour 12 volt lithium iron phosphate battery for $149. Now, we're going to check it out. We're going to see how well it does. We're going to see if it has safety features. We're going to see if it can hit capacity. We're going to see if it can push a load. We're going to check this battery out. Come on, hang out. Let's have some fun today. So this will be the first test to make sure the BMS shuts down the battery when it's fully charged. So the battery is fully charged and it passed the first test. The internal BMS shut down once the battery got full. You can see there's no voltage or current going through it. So before we get into the capacity and the load test, I want to quickly go over the product specs. To begin with, it did come with all of this cool stuff. A little package. It comes with a user manual. And let's quickly go through some of the mechanical specifications. It is 12 volts nominal. Does have 100 amp hours. Cells are prismatic. It is, of course, a Group 24. You can charge it up to 14.6. Maximum connection is 4P 4S, meaning you can put 4 in parallel and 4 in series. All of that is pretty standard. Now we'll talk about the charging. Standard charging is 20 amps, so it's a 2C. It can do a full 100 amp continuous charge. And now for the discharge. Standard discharge current is 20 amps. Max continuous discharge is 100 amps. Peak discharge is 200 amps, and we're going to be testing that. I'm not going to be able to hit that 200 amps with my setup, but we'll see if it can do 100 amps and see how close we can get to that 200 amps. This manual does have a lot of information about the differences between lead and lithium and a bunch of other really cool stuff in here that'll help you if you're a newbie, how to connect it, battery size, stuff like that, how to ship it, how to store it. Really cool information for newbies. All right, let's jump into it and let's get some capacity and load tests going. So now I am ready to do a load test. I'm going to skip the low C capacity test because all of these batteries pass those easily now. What I want to focus on, how does this battery perform in the real world? Can it run power tools? Can it run a vacuum cleaner? Can it run an inductive load? Can it run a space heater? Can it run an air compressor? Can it run real things? My setup is pretty straightforward. I have a 12 volt, 2000 watt pure sine wave inverter. This is a really good inverter. We have a kilowatt that will monitor all of the juice going through, and it also has a monitor there. This battery does not have Bluetooth, so we're not going to be able to monitor the battery directly. Let's fire this up and see what we get. So you should be able to see the juice there, and we're just going to track everything. First up, I'm going to hit it hard out of the gate with a large heat gun. We'll see what it does. On low. 700 watts coming through, no problems. Let's kick it up. And we got 13, almost 1400 watts going through the inverter. About the same going through the kilowatt. All right, right out of the gate, no problems. So I always like to test an inductive load. So I have this small motor here, and I'm going to see how well it starts under a load. So let's see what we get. Heat gun, inductive motor. All right, right out of the bat, we're doing well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a long, heavy test now to see how well it does. That was very impressive. The inverter was showing 2000 watts. The kilowatt meter was showing 17 or so. Ran that for several minutes. No hiccups at all. This battery can output the juice. Let me tell you what I had going. Again, I had a heat gun, an inductive motor, and a large shop vac. So really demanding stuff. So it easily handled all my tools. I was even able to run the chop saw, although it hesitated a little bit, but it is a small battery, so I'm going to give it a pass on that. Now I'm charging it back up fully, and I'm going to do a high C capacity test using a space heater. I'm going to hook it up to my space heater. This is going to be a long-term heavy C load and even a little bit of a capacity test. So this should run for an hour or so, given the size of the battery. So I'm going to put this on time lapse. We'll watch it. We'll see how well it does. So all my testing is done. Now I'm going to give you my recap, my evaluation of the battery, my experience in the last few days of using it. Begin with, I'm going to start with the limitations. It does not have low temperature protection, and it is not Bluetooth enabled. So if those are features and functionality that you need, you'll have to find another way to do them. And a lot of charge controllers will do both of those. So those aren't a deal breaker. It's just something to know that it doesn't have those built in. Let's talk about what I liked about it. We got to talk about the first and foremost, the price. It is a $149 100 amp hour 12 volt lithium iron phosphate battery. I mean, come on. It's $149. That is incredibly crazy. And it performed well. And it was protected. Let's talk about the protection. When I was charging it, got to 14.6, BMS shut it down, completely protected it. Outputting was amazing. I hit it with everything. Power tools, shop vac, chop saw, heat gun, inductive load. Flawless. Ran perfectly fine for minutes at a time. Then I did my space heater extended test. This is a torture test. It hit this thing with 900 watts for an hour, hour and a half, and it performed perfectly fine. So it can output fine. It's protected. It's a really good battery. Where would you use it? Anywhere. It's a Group 24, so anywhere you need a small battery, if you have a car or RV or somewhere where you want to have something compact but with a lot of energy, this is perfectly fine. It's expandable, so if you wanted to build out an off-grid setup and you wanted 48 volt, it does 4P4S, so you could use it for that type of a setup. So anywhere you could use it, knowing that it does not have low temperature protection and it is not Bluetooth enabled, so you would have to have a charge controller or some other means to do those if that was important to you. But in general, it's a solid battery. I have no complaints with it. It was protected. It put out. It was perfectly fine. Solid battery. If anybody out there has used this battery or has any questions on what you saw today, please leave a comment below. As always, like, comment, share, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to everyone soon.